Welcome to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. I'm your host, Fabian motherfucking Ojeda, and I don't know shit, but that's okay. All right, let's get this shit started. Thank you everybody for listening to the Ignorance is Strength podcast. Hope you all enjoyed episode number 101. Dang, 101, can't believe we're in the hundreds by now. It's kind of still a little bit daunting there. But I'm glad to be back with a brand new guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about making movies today. And I want to welcome to the podcast for the very first time, Mr. John Anthony. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Where are you joining us from today, John?
I am joining you from Dallas, Texas.
Nice. All right. So
Yeah.
it's weird. There seems to be a lot of more people from like the Texas area these days. In getting into the film industry, do you see that as a trend too? Because
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, almost everybody that I've interviewed about film or acting or anything like that lately has been from Texas.
Yeah, you have your LA, you have your New York, Chicago, Atlanta is really, really big right now. I mean, they do a lot of stuff. Texas, it's starting to get there, and it's, for those fans out there who watched, Yellowstone, they filmed some stuff out here in Fort Worth as they did with 1883. There's, Walker, Texas Ranger, and, some other shows. And I didn't even know, someone had told me, I can't remember this, the show now, but they were filming the show for a while out here in Dallas, or actually in Austin, and then they moved out to Atlanta. But Dallas is doing really, really well, and there's a lot of independent filmmakers out here in Dallas and Austin and Texas in general, doing really, really great stuff, and getting their names out there.
Yeah, for sure. So welcome to the podcast. As I mentioned, I've gotten a lot of people on here that have been talking movies or acting or I've had a couple of people that have released films and whatnot, and everybody seems to have a different story, a different way they got there, right? And I'm always interested to hear that path, right? So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been making movies?
Well, I started late. I mean, I'm 58 years old now. I started when I was about 50. Got into, and before that, I used to be with a improv comedy group. And there's like franchises out there. They were called Comedy Sports, and I was part of the Dallas kind of like chapter for a while, for several years, and had a blast. And then just kind of got the acting bug again, and started taking classes and really, really enjoyed it. And then went from one teacher to another teacher, and then one of my teachers that I learned so much from, he was always one that said, hey, if you ever want to write stuff, for a scene, please feel free. And my whole thing was, okay, I'm going to start, I wrote my first script for a scene, because, generally in acting class, they'll either give you a scene or they'll, a monologue and stuff like that. But he allowed us to write our own scenes. And the first scene I wrote went really, really well. And ever since then, I probably would say, I don't know, maybe I'd write maybe 90% of my scenes for class. And then that just kind of developed into having a friend seeing one of my scenes and said, hey, we can make this into a film. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, you have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end, and we can turn this into a short film if you want. So we did that, and the first one I ever did was called A Gift, and had a good friend of mine who directed it for us, and then ended up putting it into some festivals, and actually did well in some of the festivals. And then after that, it was just I just got the bug, and it just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna write another one. And a lot of times, a lot of my shorts came from scenes that I wrote in class, whether it be about a character, whether it be about a story or anything like that. And my genre is just, I've written 3 or 4 comedies, and then most of them are dramas, but I try to put my hand into anything I can from a genre standpoint to kind of just to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, and when it comes to your age, you start at 50. That's kind of got to be kind of different there. You probably were in a classroom full of a bunch of youngsters trying to get their career started, right?
Yeah, you know what? To be honest, we were probably like half and half, because there was a lot of, people in my class that were probably late 40s, early 50s, and then the other half was probably, the mid 20s, the 30s. And but yeah, it's just something that I was always passionate about. And I always, I look at it with kind of looking at it as, you're never too old to do something that you love. And you know what? Don't let anybody stop you, because you're going to have your namesayers and stuff like that. When I was telling some of my friends, hey, I think I'm going to take some acting classes and all this stuff, it's like, oh, you want to be an actor now? And they say, well, yeah, I do. I love to write, and I want to create my stories and just have fun with it. And that's kind of, the route we've been going, and it's been a good ride so far.
That is interesting to say, that people will kind of just like shit all over your dreams before you even get a chance to take a dip in the water, right? I mean, yeah. As soon as you even mention it, people are just gonna like try to tear it down. That's terrible.
It is, but a lot of times too, it's just like I look at it as just like, I take it with a grain of salt, because if you surround yourself with good people, your true friends are going to be there to support you. But it's like you said, you're always going to have some people who are your naysayers and such. And as my day job, I work as a full-time teacher. And when I started acting and I would start, booking a commercial here and there, I'd have my students come in and they're like, hey, coach, were you on TV last night? And I'm like, I don't know, what was I doing? And like, I think you were like painting the house. They go, oh yeah, I was. And like, that's really, really cool. So the kids kind of thought it was really, really cool. And anytime they get to see me on TV, they kind of, they'll come in the next day. And a lot of times I haven't even seen it yet. And they're like, hey, we saw you on TV last night, or, so forth, which is a lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You start to see it pay off, and, you didn't even know you were on TV, and everybody's kind of telling you about it. With that, I mean, how did you, was it like a slow start getting into like commercials and things like that? Because I know it's super competitive out there, right?
Yeah. You're 100% correct. And here's one of the things, when I first started out, it was very, very slow. I mean, even like, after taking a couple acting teachers and so forth, like I was with this one teacher for about 2.5 years, and I had like one audition. I didn't even have an agent yet. And then once I got an agent with my second acting coach, you start seeing auditions, and you start seeing, whether it be an industrial commercial or a regular commercial, or, something for a TV show or a movie, whatever, that's where things really kind of started to take off. And it's just, the thing that is too, is like at my age, and I was telling a friend of mine, there's not a lot of, roles for like a 58-year-old guy, unless it's a grandpa or a dad or a father, or, or something like that. And it was funny because I was telling him, I said, I was reading something, and they were looking for a distinguished New York City detective. It was for a film they were shooting down here. And, they were going to base it off of, the guy was a former New York City detective. And and then when I went and looked at it, and they wanted the age to be like between 25 and 28, I'm like going, there's no way. If you're doing casting, there's no way that guy's going to be a distinguished detective. He's still probably a police officer, So, unless it's stuff like that. And that's kind of the thing sometimes too, I look at too, is you can always, and I'm still green as grass with this, with the acting aspect of it, So, I mean, I'm learning every day, even with my writing and filmmaking. But the thing that is like, I always try to tell friends of mine, or even people starting out, that you can go in and do the best audition you've ever done. And they can even look at you and go, hey, you know what? That was fantastic. And then you go home, and it's like, man, I think I got it. But then all of a sudden you don't hear anything, because they're looking for a certain look. You can go in and go, hey, that guy was phenomenal, but you know what? Just not the look we're going for. That girl who read for the mom, she was fantastic, but you know what? We want someone younger. And that's just what they go with. Doesn't mean you did bad or anything, but when I would go through stuff like that, I just told myself, I said, meeting with my agent, I said, you know what? I'm not going to rest on your laurels to find me something. If I'm not getting anything, I'm going to go create, and I'm going to create my own stuff. And, I surround myself with good people. I I never had a casting or I never had auditions for my films because I generally would just go in my acting class and say, hey, you know what? I want you to play this role, you to play this role, and they'd be okay, and we'd go make movies. So, if it's slow, I encourage everybody out there, just start writing, and then go make a short film, and then that way, because you're staying on top of your craft, you're working on it, and then also you might find yourself, I really enjoy this writing aspect of it too. But then you've also got footage for a reel, because casting directors want to see what you got, and if you don't have anything, go create something and put yourself in there. Do I have a friend of mine, he's done it with several friends of mine, where they were actors and they didn't have anything because they hadn't had an agent yet, they hadn't had any roles yet. So we would write, a scene, or they would write a scene, and it might be like 30 seconds, but then you do like 5 or 6 different clips, and then all of a sudden you got a demo reel, and it's like, oh, hey, that now I got a reel I can show people. It may not be something that they've seen before, but it at least gives them something that the casting director can look and go, hey, you know what? This guy's got something on a reel, or this girl's got something on a reel that we can sit there and watch. Rather than just looking at a picture and going, well, based off a picture, we really don't have anything based on your acting, your acting skills and stuff.
Right. Now, as many times as I've talked to people, in the film industry and whatnot, I still don't kind of understand, like, where do these things get, put out? If it's not like a major release of any sort, right? Where do you put these like short films out? Is it like just on the internet? How do people, get to see, and you've got your reels as well, as you mentioned, but how do people get to see, what you're working on?
Okay. Well, there's a, like the very first film festival that I put mine in, a friend of mine, who hooked me up with it and directed it. There's a website called filmfreeway.com. And what it is you can go on there, and they've got short film festivals, and even, for feature length film festivals all across the world. I mean, from, Europe to the United States to, Australia, everywhere. They've got tons and tons of stuff. And so, like, for me, that's basically what I would do is I would go ahead, and once my film was done, I'd go in there and I'd look at some of these markets. And, a lot of times I'd want to hit like the bigger markets, LA, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, just in case, hey, maybe there's somebody in there who's watching it. Now the thing that is, ever since COVID happened, there's a lot of them are all like online. So it's like, they have judges and stuff, and it's like an online monthly kind of thing. But even before that, you submit to these festivals. I mean, Fort Worth has a great film festival, as does Dallas. And, once things start to open up, you go and you go and watch these films. Mm-hmm. And, you get your name out, and it's all about networking too, meeting people, and, meeting new actors, directors, maybe somebody there who's, owns a production company or stuff like that. And then a lot of the times too, it's like, I have a friend of mine, he puts all of his films on his YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And, once he's done, it's just, you go there and watch him and stuff like that. And then what I've done is, when they're in the festivals, I don't post anything till they're done. And then what a lot of times that I'll do is, like, on my website, I'll have like clips of the films, and then, like a segment, or, just like a scene from one of the films, so people can kind of get an idea what it's about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it really kind of depends on, people want, and then of course you can put your film on, what is it? Prime Video on right. Amazon. You can do that, stuff like that. I have a bunch of friends who put their short films on there. So, I mean, there's a lot of avenues, because, a lot of us don't have the big budgets to go, hey, we're going to put it at a theater. But then there's a lot of times too. I mean, you can like here in Dallas, you can rent out a theater for about a nice theater for about $800 for a couple hours, and just, show films. And we did that, where we held it was a fundraiser, and packed the theater and raised about $3,000 for this foundation, which was a lot of fun.
Nice. Now we're talking about short films. What length is a short film? I mean, are we talking like 15 minutes, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it really kind of depends, because there's very different types of lengths. I mean, generally they considered it anything under 35, 45 minutes is a short film. Now you can go to a festival and it say, hey, anything under 55 minutes is a short film. You know, it really kind of depends on the festival. But you know, like most feature length films are going to be anywhere between an hour 15, hour and a half. So short films kind of fall under the window of about 50 minutes. Most of my films range between 10 and 22 minutes. And then there's also what they call a micro short. And that's anything, generally it's either like, again, it depends on the festival, but generally that's anything less than 5 minutes. You can have a micro short that's under 10 minutes if it's, you know, if that's what they want to go with. But yeah, it's generally between 10 and I want to say 45, 50 minutes is probably like the max.
And you mentioned, you know, not having a budget and everything like that. Right. What do you, how much do you typically spend on making a film, a short film?
You know, it depends. On an average for me now, you know, like the first film I ever made, I spent $500.
Wow.
And, you know, cause it was just like my actor friends, I mean, we're not paying each other and it's just like, they just want footage. And so, but like right now, I think the most expensive film that I've ever done was like $2,500, you know, and that's, you know, when you look at, you know, paying for editing and music and, you know, I have a good friend of mine who's actually a musician and, you know, he's always like, hey, you know what, let me write a song for you. And I've got another guy here in Dallas who I met when I was doing a commercial voiceover. And I was talking about a film and I said, man, I just got to find someone who I got to put some music to it and some sound to it. And he's like, I can do that for you. So again, you do networking, doing something else. And all of a sudden you meet somebody else and then you develop this relationship. And he's done, I think my last 4 films for me, and he's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah. And you know, I find it really interesting that those of y'all in like the, you know, that are pursuing, you know, a career in film and everything like that, just so resourceful, you know, like, and really kind of are willing to, you know, like make the dream work because if you look at other things like music, right? I mean, I love playing music and, you know, for me though, and for, I know for a lot of people, it always kind of sucked when you had to do the whole pay to play kind of thing where you sell tickets to a venue and you don't get a cut of the money really, you know, you just have to fill the venue up. And that's how you kind of grow. And it just gets so daunting because it's like you're always asking your friends and family for money, you know, because it's like, hey, it's begging, like, hey, come watch us play. You know what I'm saying? And that gets annoying, and nobody wants to do that all the time. But like for me, you know, really the passion kind of died because it was so much work, and you know, I had to, you know, actually live a normal life, you know. And I still love playing music any chance I get, but I'm not pursuing, you know, a career in music. But I noticed that a lot of people in, you know, acting and film and everything like that, y'all really just like you make that dream last, you know, like whether you're doing like you know, like what do you call it? Like background acting or you know,
extras and stuff, doing
extras,
extra work.
Yeah. You know, or whatever, you know, it's just like I know people just really don't give that life up, right? I mean, do you notice that, or what is it about, you know, I mean, what is it about that drive to just try to make it work?
You know, I think it really kind of depends on each person. Cause like I've had some friends that have gone out to LA and it's just like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna pursue my acting. And they've been out there like 6 months and either they've come home, you know, they've come back to Dallas, or they're out there and, you know, they're doing something completely different, or they're out there still, you know, still grinding, still trying to find it. You know, I think, you know, I think once we have that passion in us, you know, it doesn't ever go away. I mean, it's just like you said, you know, I'm not, you know, like you said, you had to go get a real job and so forth, but I guarantee you that passion's still in you. And it's still, you know, I mean, it still drives you. It just kind of, it's like sometimes you've got to kind of take a sidestep before you get back to what you really, really love. And like for me, you know, being a teacher, having my summers off, it's like, okay, let's really just bust out and see how many films we can make, you know, and then I'll, you know, of course, having my weekends off and so forth. But before, you know, it was tough, but you know, my goal eventually is, and my passion eventually is where I don't have to teach anymore. And I can just be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to write, I wrote a film, I wrote a full length feature, and, you know, somebody bought it, or, you know, it's going to get made. But the thing, like with me, it's like, I was talking to one of my teachers and I told him about the screenplay that I'm promoting now, this full length feature, and he's like, you know, well, who do you want to direct it? And I said, you know what, I really don't know. I said, you know, in a perfect world, I said, you know, a Ron Howard or, you know, someone of that, you know, Clint Eastwood, I would be just love to have him direct this film. But, you know, and, you know, and they're like, well, how much would you sell it for and so forth. And to me, it's more about the art, you know, I mean, of course, everybody wants to get paid, you know, but like, to me, if they said, hey, you know what, if a company came to me and said, hey, you know what, I don't have a lot of money to give you for this, but we're going to have Ron Howard or Clint Eastwood direct it. They like their script and they're going to make it for you and blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, going, that's okay. Because you know what, that's my passion. That's my dream. It's just, you know, to tell a story and have people go and get moved by it. You know, but then, you know, of course, I mean, who wouldn't want to, you know, hey, we're going to write you a check for, you know, $250,000. Yeah, I'm not going to turn it down.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just, you know, because like someone asked me, why do you make the movies that you do? Because your genre is very, very different. I said, just because it kind of like whatever comes to me, and then I'll sit down and I'll write. And then it's just like, I just want people to be moved by the stuff I see, whether it makes them laugh, whether it makes them cry, whether, it makes them think about something. Or makes them feel a certain way. You know, and the thing it is too, it's just like everything, whether it be music or movies or TV shows or whatever, not everyone's going to like your stuff. And I'm totally fine with that. You know, it's just, I mean, that's a part of, you know, you and I can go to a movie right now and go, hey, what'd you think of Batman? And I'm like going, oh my gosh, I thought it was awesome. And you go, it was okay. You know, so I mean, everybody's got their own opinion, but again, it's just, don't ever let that stop you from doing what you love, you know. And for me, it's acting and writing and making movies.
Yeah, for sure. Now you mentioned you're working on a full length feature right now, right? Are you like, in what stage are you in that? Are you done with it?
Yeah, I am. I am completely done with it. I've had like 2 or 3 rewrites with it. I've actually pitched it to a production company out in Los Angeles, and sent it to them, never heard back, which is kind of like the norm, you know? So now it's this, out of all the films that I've ever done and the screenplays that I've written, and feature films that I've written, this is by far my favorite than anything that I've written. It's a family movie. You know, because if you look at today's genre, when you look at, you know, if you're going to go to a movie theater, there's not a lot of family movies out there. There's a lot of action heroes and, you know, drama and, you know, horror films, which will always be out there. But this is a story that the whole family can go to see. You know, you could take your 3-year-old, your 5-year-old, your 12-year-old, you know, your grandma and grandpa, and, you know, that hopefully they go and they see it and they go, God, that was a really, really good movie.
Now, is there anything else you could tell us about it?
Yeah, so basically the name of the feature is called Walter, and it's about a young boy who befriends an elderly man. And basically what it is, it kind of tells the story of Bennett, who's a young boy who's in the pursuit of the ultimate bicycle. And, you know, he was kind of given one at a garage sale, and it's he looks at it as a piece of junk and so forth, but he develops this relationship with this older man. And Walter, basically, who's the name of the elder gentleman, basically teaches him it's not what important is, and the important things in life, it's not what you want, but it's what you have and what you're surrounded with. It's not about necessarily the material stuff, but it's more important to surround yourself with good things and good quality things. And again, not what you want, but what you have, and really bring that all into focus. And it tells us, I think it's, and I mean, of course I wrote it, but I think it's a great story. And I think it's a story that, somebody out there is going to say, hey, you know what, let's make this thing, let's make this movie and make this movie work. I have some friends like, hey, can I be cast in it, whatever. And I'm like going, well, we'll see what happens. But when I wrote the script, my original, of course, as a writer, you're always thinking, oh, who do I want to star in this? Do I want, Tom Hanks? Do I want this person, this person, whoever? And when I wrote it, the only person I ever had in mind for the role of Walter was Morgan Freeman. And I'm not going to stop until, maybe Morgan Freeman said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do this or whatever. In a perfect world, if anybody out there knows Morgan Freeman, say, hey, you know what? I heard this guy on this podcast and he's got a script for you. And you know, he is like my ultimate dream to play this role. And then I don't know if you're familiar with a guy by the name of Ed Burns. He's an actor. He's phenomenal. He was in The Brothers McMillan. He's one of my favorite actors. He was in Saving Private Ryan. I want him to play the dad. So when you know, it's just kind of like I get these, you know, these ideas of exactly who I want, and it just kind of, you know, I just kind of go off of that. And you know, like I said, fingers crossed. That's my dream. You know, they say dreams do come true, so I'm gonna keep pushing. You know.
Yeah. So let's say ultimate dream. You know, this is you know, it's a success. It's huge. It's bought and it's made into a film. But let's say in an alternate world, you know, maybe someone wants to pick it up on Netflix or Hulu or something like that. Is it to you considered as much a success? Is that something, a route that you'd be willing to, you know, to go down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's just having the right actors to tell the story. You know, if you've got a good story and you have good actors, you're going to have a good film. You know, it's just, you know, and I think if you surround yourself with a Morgan Freeman and you surround yourself with Ed Burns, it's just like, you know, whether it be Netflix or Amazon, because you even look at now, I mean, some of like the award shows, it's like they're pulling stuff off of, you know, Apple TV and Hulu and Amazon and Netflix and stuff like that. You know, I'm a big Ted Lasso fan, and it's just you know, Apple TV, it's, you know, they're winning awards left and right. So yeah, like for me, it's just about getting the film made and getting and having people out there and giving people the ability to go out and watch a family movie.
Because people are really entertained differently these days, right? So you're talking about a family movie. Maybe, you know, families used to go out to the theater together. I honestly don't see that as much, to be honest with you. But maybe they'll be willing to sit together, you know, on a couch and watch something on Netflix or Hulu or whatever other platform, you know. And maybe it could work, you know, a little better on a streaming platform. I was kind of throw that out there because, you know, back in the day, you would hear like straight to cable or straight to, you know, DVD, and it's like, that's an insult, you know?
Yeah, straight to VHS or whatever.
Yeah, but times have changed.
VHS, but yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, you know, even think with, you know, when COVID happened, it's just like, you know, everybody's sitting home because it's like, you even look now, I mean, you know, some of the movies that are out there now, it's just, I mean, it goes, I mean, it's a Netflix original movie and it's like the number one thing streaming right now on all, you know, and it's just, you know, so yeah, I mean, the platform, it's not so much the platform, it's just having the story be made and told. And, you know, like I said, if Apple bought it, hey, we're going to put it on Apple, you know what, hey, millions of people watch that, you know, watch the Apple TV and so forth. So,
or who would have thought that Tiger King would have changed the world, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you know, they're making a movie now.
Well, they have the series out on, I think, on Peacock right now.
Is that the one with Kate McKinnon who plays the yeah, okay, yeah.
It's mildly entertaining, I'll say that. I mean, the actual, you know, Tiger King series itself was more entertaining than anything, but
that just kind of, that whole series thing, just, I mean, my wife and I watched it, and it's just like, after I watched the first episode, I'm like, I couldn't stop. I just had to watch every single one, you know. It's just that was something.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of jumped the shark on it a little bit because they have you know, the now they have the Tiger King, you know, from the perspective of like 3 other people, and it's it's not going anywhere. He's in jail. It's like he's the star, you know, like unfortunately he's a piece of crap, but you know, Joe Exotic's the star. So if you don't have him, you know, when his antics, it just doesn't work the same. You know, that's the thing about reality TV. There, you need that person. But you know, back to you know, to making movies and whatnot. You know, I think I've always you know wondered like what the process is like, right? So let's say we are going to like a big platform. It's going to be a big theatrical release, right? So you have the writer, you're the writer, right? What goes on then? Because there seems to me to be so many pieces in play. Because anytime, you know, I look through like you know, what do you call it? The credits and stuff and everything. I'm like, dang, there's so many people involved. You know, like then there's a producer, there's a director. There's, I don't know, a godfather of the underwear, whatever.
Oh, you're right. And I don't know a ton of stuff about, getting the big budget and stuff like that. I have some friends that work with me on stuff like that, but like a lot of it, it's like with distribution. I mean, you'll get someone say, hey, you know what? We've got these people and distribution. Hey, you know what? All right, we're going to buy it from you once it gets made, but now we need some funding. All right, we're going to fund your movie. And then they pay the actors, they pay everything. And then once it's done, then all of a sudden it's, hey, you know what? This is your distribution company. You're going to distribute it to wherever you want to go. But again, I'm not 100% how all that stuff works, because like I said, I'm still green, but like for me right now, it's just writing and telling stories and stuff like that. And like my production company that I have when I do my films, it's me and one of my best, a very close friend of mine, one of my best friends, when we make our film. So it's a group of two. He does the lighting, he does the camera work, I'll direct. I have another friend of mine who'll come in and do some producing, and then that's basically us. It's a team of two, and we sit there and we've turned out like 13 14 films so far. But again, it's not, because we just don't have the budget to pay 25 different people on set and all that other stuff.
Right.
So
yeah. Now once, let's say, again, it's the big theatrical release and it gets out of your hands, right? Do you think typically there's a lot of change, like it starts to become so distant from what you thought it would be? Because that happens at times, right? Where they
yeah, most definitely. So let's say you write a script, okay, and I'm with a production company, and I say, hey, you know what, I want to buy your script, and you're like, okay, I'm going to give you $100,000 for your script, but you're gonna waive all rights, which basically means that I can change it any way I want to because you've already sold it to me. It's in my hands now. Now you can have it where it's like, no, you know what? Yeah, you can buy it, but I want to be exclusive with it where I control certain things of the story or however. That's all stuff that I think you have to look at from a contract standpoint when they offer things. But there's a lot of things too, because like I've had a friend of mine where it's just like, he's just like, yeah, they'll come in and they'll buy it from you, and then if you say you sign on the dotted line, a lot of times they could change it up, they could make it twist the story any way that they want because they own it now. It's their story, they bought it from you. And that's one of the things why with this one I want to be so very careful with, because it is a family movie and I want it to be told the way I wrote it.
Yeah, that would suck. You want Morgan Freeman, they give you Tracy Morgan,
yeah. And it goes from a family movie to like a horror movie or something. Wait a minute, that's not what it's supposed to be. So yeah, again, you just have to really read what you're going to sign and all that stuff. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's an entertainment lawyer too, so he'll tell me things, and he was tells me stuff, the same thing. What I was just telling you, it's just like, unless you don't sign off on something, they buy it, it's theirs, and they can do whatever they want. They can take it and put it on a shelf and sit there 20 years and it sits on a shelf. It's just like, hey, you know what, we'll make it sometime, maybe we won't. But
yeah, I've seen that a lot in those behind the scenes type of documentaries. I'm like, that's crazy. How some movies are just like kept on the shelf for so long. Now, and this is something I've really kind of never really understood. I've always thought that the hard part is writing it. The hard part is coming up with the story. The hard part is telling the story. A lot of the times the writer doesn't get as much credit as a director, right? I mean, the director seems to get all the credit, all the acclaim, all the awards. That's just in my eyes, just because again, I'm kind of ignorant to the business there, but I always hear like the writer, the director's getting all the kudos. Does it seem like that from your perspective?
Again, I haven't been in that big world yet. So, but I have heard stuff like that. But at the same time, the writers are winning, awards for screenplay, best screenplay, Academy Award, Golden Globe, whatever it is. So I think it's, I think to the extent it's like if you were to say, hey, you know what, who wrote that? I don't know. Well, Steven Spielberg directed. Oh, I know Steven Spielberg. Yeah, but they, it's like, unless it's something that he wrote. I mean, he's phenomenal, and everything he does. But I don't know. I don't know if I don't know on that one. It's kind of like I think I can see where you're coming from, because it is like it's directed by Martin Scorsese or, Tom Hanks or Ron Howard. But I think in most part, the writers get credit, because it's just like, if it wasn't for the writer, it's just like, that guy's not directing, he's not getting, he's not making any money, he's not making this film. So
yeah, just wouldn't exist. Yeah, because that's something I never understood. I'm like, man, like the stories are so cool because somebody wrote that, somebody imagined that, somebody came up with that, and then you always get like the director getting all the kudos. But I guess it's hard too, to really kind of put a vision in place and try to capture all the magic that was written, from somebody else's point of view, right? So trying to really align yourself with what they're going for. So it's all just a big, like well-oiled machine when it's successful, I guess, and that's the beauty of it all, right? I mean, it's that collaboration, that synergy and everything, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I think when you surround yourself with a good team, and it's just like, like for me, even though my films are small and it's very, very, very low budget, but the people I bring in, nobody has egos. It's not, it's, even like the actors, they're not coming in with attitudes. They're coming into work and have fun, and because we know each other, and it's a very, hardworking group that wants to come out there and make something good. Because it's like, if I'm going to give them a reel afterwards, they don't want to have something on the reel that, that looks terrible. So it's just, I think the key is you surround yourself with people that you trust, and people that and people that you can work well with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, with your everything that you've got working on, that you're working on, is there anything new that you want to throw out there, or is anything? I know you mentioned that this is your kind of your focus right now, but is there anything else in the works that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so it's funny because I just finished up on my third rewrite, and I went a totally different avenue, because I've never written a short film about this before, but it's called My Journey to Me, and it's a story about a woman in her late 20s who finally decides to come out. And it was one that I wanted to do a lot of research on before I started writing it, and I wanted to make sure everything that I was doing was the right way. And I have a friend of mine that I met through acting class. I met with him, and he happens to be he's a gay man. And I called him and I said, hey, look, I said, I'm writing this short film. I said, would you be interested in just taking a look at it and reading it? Because I would love to get your insight on it. And because I don't want it to be like, like Hollywoodized, I guess I would say, with all the throwing stuff in that doesn't really belong in there. And, he's like, absolutely. And I met him for dinner just, a couple nights ago, and we sat, he read the script, and it was so uplifting for me, because he's a great actor. He's a great person, and as he's reading stuff, he'd stop and he'd say something. He goes, it's almost like blah, 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 and this is happening. And I stopped him one time. I said, did you read this already? I said, because wait till you read 5 more pages. And what he said was exactly what I had put in there. And like some of the terminology that I use, at one point there's a scene where the father finds out, and he looks to his daughter and says, well, maybe this is just a phase. And even he said, he goes, I can't tell you how many times either I've heard that or it's been said to other people, this is just a phase. This is just a phase. And, I wanted to do it because, I don't know if there's a lot of short films out there like this, but I wanted it to be, again, I wanted it to be real. And I think, when it's all said and done, I think the audience is going to like it. It's because it's done, it's going to be done very tastefully. And it's also, it's a really beautiful story. It's about, like I said, a girl who suffered for so long and then finally learns that she's able to come out and be who she wants to be. And that her journey is her journey. And she's lived it to a point where it's just like, I want to live my life now. And she's able to tell that through her story. So that's the one that we're going to start shooting in May. And then I have a micro short where we talked, you talked about lengths of short films.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it's a comedy. I don't want to tell you too much what it's about because then it'll give it up because it's a micro short. Oh, I know what it's about. But it'll probably be about 3 minutes. It's something I wrote about a year ago, and then it was sitting up on my computer, and I looked at it and go, man, I need to make that a short film. And I made some adjustments on it, and I sent it to a buddy of mine, and he read it. And then I have a friend of mine he's just an incredible comedic actor, and sent it to him, and I said, hey, I want you to play this role, and he's like, okay. And so we'll shoot that in May as well. That'll be like a 1-day shoot, which should be nice. And then when I'm finished, I'll send you the link and you can watch it. And I'd love to get your take on it. It's just, I don't want to give you too much because it'll be like, but it's a comedy. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm a comedy fan, so I welcome that. With everything going on in your your film life here, there must be people that kind of like now look to you, right, for like, hey, how do I get started and things like that, right? So how would you what kind of advice would you give to the youngster trying to get started, or the 50-year-old in class trying to get started in in film and making movies and writing and stuff like that and acting?
I think the first thing is, well, like for me, I'm my hardest critic, even from an acting standpoint. I'll put something out and my friends go, oh, that's good. I'm like, no, I don't like it. I mean, I have a couple short films I won't even show people because I don't like it. And I have my production guy, he's like, man, this is a good film. I'm like, no, I don't like it. I think the biggest thing is like what we talked about earlier, you're going to have namesayers. Okay. And people go, oh, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do this, because it's a very, very competitive field. 90% of all actors are basically unemployed unless they're working on a project. Mm-hmm. You also look at it from a standpoint of just what avenues are you going to take to get there. And the other thing too is you also have to understand that, in this business, you're going to hear no probably 95% of the time. Mm-hmm. And if you're okay with that, and if this is your passion, like music, yours passion, filmmaking's mine, it's just like, that's going to be okay, because you're going to keep picking yourself up. But I would say, get into an acting class, start taking classes, sit down. If you have a story, write it. I mean, the first thing I ever wrote wasn't great. And, as you write more, you start to pick up more. There's some master classes on the internet that you can sign up for, that are amazing. The more knowledge you get, the better things get. The more you learn. Even being me as a coach, and even a basketball coach, I used to tell my other coaches, I said, you know what, if you think that you know everything as a basketball coach, you're not a very good coach, because mm-hmm. coaches are learning every day. I'll sit there and I'll watch an NBA game and I go, wait a minute, I think I could modify that play and have my students run it. And sure enough, you can. But it's just, the thing that is, it's just, there's going to be walls and there's going to be, peaks and valleys to everything. But if you stay grounded, you stay, you're humble about it, and you work hard, the sky's the limit. And, like I said, I'm 58 years old now. I haven't been in a major motion picture yet. I've been fortunate to do some commercials, a few things on TV, but you know what, I'm still grinding, because you know what, it's almost like you want to say, I'm not taking no for an answer. At some point in time, whether it's me, and Apple TV saying, hey, you know what, we're going to take this, make this a show, or, getting an audition, go, hey, you know what, you booked it and we're going to put you in this film. It's just, it's a process. And one of my acting coaches, who I've learned so much for, he always said, what you got to remember in acting is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Mm-hmm. You're not going to go to Dallas and move out to LA, and then you walk out there and you go to your first audition, they give you a network TV show. If that happens, that's fantastic, but the odds are probably not in your favor. So it's just like, am I okay being told no? It's like the old, saying, if you get knocked down, how many times are you going to get yourself up? I'm going to pick myself up every time I get knocked down, because you're passionate about it. You and your music, I guarantee if I said, hey, you know what, grab that guitar and play a song, you're not gonna. No, I'm not gonna play it now. You know, I'm this isn't me. I don't do that anymore. No, you do, because it's always a part of you.
Right.
You know, and I think if you've got to believe in yourself, and like you said before with the Namesayers, you surround yourself with incredible people. My wife is my biggest supporter. I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for her. So it's just like, again, you surround yourself with great people, and good things are going to happen. And again, it's just about being patient.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, learned a lot about, film, learned a lot about you. Wish you the best of luck on everything you do. Is there any social media where people can find you?
Yeah. So my website is capital J, capital D, capital A, films, FILMS.com. And then you can check out my IMDb page just at John Anthony. And then also Facebook is John D. Anthony Actor.
Nice. So when this comes out, we'll give you a nice little tag there on probably on Facebook. I don't know. Are you on Instagram?
I have Instagram. I don't use it nearly as I probably should, but yeah.
All right. Well, at least Facebook. We'll give you a nice little tag there on Facebook. But yeah, definitely appreciate it. I'm gonna be looking for some John Anthony productions out there pretty soon, or right. some guest spots in a movie with Morgan Freeman or something like that.
So here, let me ask you before I go. Do you write your own songs?
You know what? Actually, if you listen to the opening song to the podcast, that's a song I wrote in 2004 when I was in high school.
Okay. So you know what? Hey, I might be reaching out to you and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you write me a song for a film?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to. Yeah.
And I'll send you some links to some of my other short films you can take a look at.
Definitely. Well, yeah, thank you again. Definitely a pleasure. Wish you all the success.
Thanks so much for having me.
For everybody at home, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, good night.
Subscribe to the Ignorance is Strength podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Like, follow, and share on Facebook and Instagram at Ignorance is Strength Podcast, and on Twitter at The Ignorance Pod.